Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We played this video that was taken by the mother of the two brothers charged with the murder of Ella French and the critical injuring of Officer Oscar Yanez. We played it earlier.
Do you want to hear it again where she stormed Christ Hospital screaming?
A little snippet of it, and it's important to note that she's filming herself as she enters Christ Hospital wanting to see her one son.
Yeah, Facebook Live.
I want to see my son. Oh, hold on. Monty! Monty! Don't touch me! Get away from me!
Yeah, and she kicked a Christ Hospital security guard in the groin. She resisted arrest from Chicago police, and she was only charged and released on a misdemeanor, not even charged with a felony. But before she stormed the hospital, she sat in her car and wanted people to know about her two boys. They're innocent.
To be a voice for my boys, Eric and Monty Morgan. I want you to know I love you, and your family loves you, and you're not alone. Know that. For everybody else, I just want to simply say there is another side, and my boy's side is not being told right now. I cannot speak too much on it, but I will say this. Don't believe everything you hear and see. It's fictitious. And there is another side. My boys are not monsters, what people trying to paint them to be, at all. At all. There is another side. I don't believe a damn thing CPD says. And I can guarantee you this.
And then she stormed the hospital.
Well,
41 years old. Her name is Flores, Evelina Flores.
Yeah, again, you want to give wide berth to a distraught parent, but there are limits to it. It'd be interesting to ask her now that she's going to be processed in a court of law, case adjudicated. What was the thinking behind filming yourself going into Christ Hospital? Because that's a premeditated act.
Oh, of course.
And she doesn't seem so distraught in that video that she shot before she went into Christ Hospital. So that tends to undermine any charity for her as a distraught mother. In terms of the don't believe CPD, there's the other side of the story. Well, do tell. Do tell, because it's not just as you say, what you've heard. We have security camera footage now. We see the officers coming up on the car. Go ahead and make out your case, Mom. This is why we have courts of law. We know if your sons aren't monsters. We do know they're convicted felons, though, don't we? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by John Cantanzara. He is the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 7. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Jen and Amy.
Before we get into all of the politics of this, a friend of mine passed along a note about Officer Yanez's condition, and it was good news. The note I got that he was breathing on his own. He had some water and food. He said several words, recognized family and visitors. So just whatever you can tell us about his condition, because obviously people are concerned.
Well, he did have some surgeries yesterday. I've been in contact with the family, and to not go into too much detail, I could just tell you that they were pretty pleased with the procedures that were done yesterday and the progress that was made. But he has a long road ahead of him still, and
sure,
we're certainly going to be there to make sure he progresses as far as he possibly can.
Now, is it true that Mayor Lightfoot went into his hospital room to see him on the night of the shooting?
No.
Okay.
What she did do was go up to the 7th floor where he was at while everybody else was down in the ER still after they had brought him up for a CAT scan. And, I was down in the emergency room area. And, I just want to preface this by saying anybody who is saying that this is disrespectful to Ella French, they don't know what they're talking about, because I spent an hour and a half sitting with her mother in her living room yesterday talking about Ella, and she understands all of this. We have plenty of time, and we will never forget Ella, and we will continue to remember Ella. But the ridiculous behavior from the Chicago Police Department, upper brass, and the mayor in this tragedy needs to be highlighted at the same time. You
Well,
can
what
do
happened?
both here.
Well, tell us what happened.
So the mayor was told repeatedly that Carlos Sr., a recently retired Chicago police officer himself, did not want the mayor and that circus up on the 7th floor where he was at, period. She still decided she was going up there anyway. She went up there. It did not go well. Carlos Sr. let her know what he thought about her and her disrespect for ignoring his wishes and his family's wishes. Had a few choice words for her, and then there was a group of officers up there, and they kind of witnessed everything that was going on, and when she started to come their way, they, in unison, turned around and took a couple steps away from her and just ignored her. Nobody wanted to talk to her. And that was just what happened upstairs. I was downstairs with 300 to 400 officers in that emergency bay, out on the street, in the park. We were just everywhere, and you could just feel the palpable despise for her and for other members of the CPD brass that were in attendance that day.
Well, yeah, so let's talk about CPD brass too. I mean, Lightfoot's sort of a known quantity, and that response from the father as well as from the police has been sort of well documented now, and is, well, completely appropriate in my mind, and then some, frankly. But the first deputy superintendent, this guy named Eric Carter, there's video of him circulating. We've talked a bit about it too. There's also commentary circulating about what he did that night as it pertains to the honor guard that was waiting to escort Ella French to the medical examiner's office. Can you speak to that?
So, there was a little video clip that's been circulating, and thankfully, an officer who had seen the whole incident at one point decided I should probably record this, and caught the end of it. But there was quite a bit before that. There's a very established procedure. This isn't the first time, sadly, we've had to bury one of our own, or even transport a female or male officer to the morgue. So the honor guard specifically know the procedure that is followed. And it's sad, but, First Deputy Carter thinks he knows better with everything, and he was dictating to the honor guard what he wanted done. Well, he was trying to get the honor guard to get the procedure moving on a little faster than it needed to be. So where the turn goes into the morgue, there was a giant flag being hung by our brothers and sisters from CFD. That's where Ella French's mother was supposed to be, with a department designee. So the honor guard would know where she was at, so he can salute her as they make the turn towards the morgue. This was all pre-planned, but Ella's mom was still in the Bay Area, in the receiving area of the Cook County morgue. So he knew that his designated marker, the person that he was looking for, was not there, because he didn't know what Ella French's mother looked like. So he wanted to wait. Well, First Deputy Carter kept saying no. He didn't want to wait for the bagpipes. He didn't want to wait for nothing. Everything was rush, rush, rush. And that's where you hear him, let's go. We're not waiting 20 minutes for the bagpipes. I mean, it's just beyond disrespectful. He should be demoted to lieutenant immediately, because that's about the best you can do unless he's going to resign. But it has been a disgrace, his behavior in this whole situation. And it's just a cherry on top of the cake, because he has been probably the most harmful entity to the Chicago Police Department for the last, at least since I've been in office, year and a half, that has done damage to this department's morale that's going to take years to unwind.
Well, what exactly did he do, though? Because I've heard other people say this, but I think our listeners want more details about Deputy Carter.
Well, no, I want to know in that night first. I want to know what's his explanation. Why the rush? What's so important?
I was told that there was another 10-1 somewhere in the city, and I guess he was disturbed by the fact there was several hundred squad cars involved in this procession to send Ella French off, as we do every officer in that situation. And he wanted people back out on the street all of a sudden. I don't have any other, I can't get into Deputy Carter's mind. Who knows? Only he can answer that. But there is no reason for it. If they were so worried about manpower on the street, and then they shouldn't have created the CST team to begin with, because that entity robbed every police district in this city of a lot of manpower and have left midnight crews specifically so shorthanded it has been a major safety issue that this department does not give a damn about. We have districts. I'm going to give you a quick example. The 11th district on the west side, the city's homicide capital of it raining, I think 9 of the last 11 years, the most homicides have occurred in 11. Well, guess what? Their midnight crew on some nights have 4-5 cars up total and 1 sergeant for the whole district. Inexcusable.
That's nothing.
So these community service teams, let's talk about that. So is this the brainchild of this administration and Brown?
Yes.
And so this is, here's what I understand from some who've called in, police, as well as just communicated with me directly. 2 things. One is there's sort of a general lack of confidence in the brass. One police officer called in and said that they couldn't manage Burger King. That's number one. Number 2 is these community service teams reverse seniority. This is why Ella French, with 3 years on the force, 29 years old, was there. Yanez, who has, I think, 7 years on the force, 8 years on the force, was there, because the guys that have more seniority don't want to volunteer to be in West Englewood for all sorts of obvious reasons. And so the combination of the reverse seniority, the lack of tactical experience, and then the way that the new breed of officers are being trained in sort of the consent decree world of Lori Lightfoot. Could you speak to the CSTs in that context?
Well, I will tell you, CST has a mix of reverse seniority younger officers and people who volunteered for that assignment. When you have latitude of a citywide unit, a lot of officers enjoy that freedom. It's a little different. You're not being tied to a radio where you're answering, assignments in a beat car. So that's positive for them. But I don't want, and I hope our officers don't go into this youth thing, because I could tell you, Ella French might have had 3 years on the job. But I've seen everything that happened that night. Ella French didn't do a damn thing wrong. There was nothing different she could have did that would have saved her life that night. She actually gave her life more than likely to save Carlos's, because if she hadn't intervened, Carlos might have very well caught the first bullet and it would have been fatal instead of catastrophic. So we need to just focus on Ella French and the heroic actions she took that night and gave her life for this goddamn city. It kind of pisses me off that people are going to talk even about her only 3 years on the job, and maybe she shouldn't have been in that unit. That's nonsense. She was a great officer. She was doing everything right, and she was the future of this department, and that's what her memory needs to be. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let anybody try and even taint that.
Okay, but speak to the larger, because you seem to be critical of the CSTs generally. So beyond Ella French and Oscar Yanez,
I was critical of the CST because of the methods they use to create it and the size of unit that it has become, because it has literally left every police district short of manpower on every single one of the 3 watches. And that is inexcusable. This department's first priority and mission should be the beat officer in a CAPS supposedly, goal theme that they're trying to push here. Is this all about community policing? Well, a community safety team is designed for activity. That's what they are out there for. They want them to do the traffic stops, document the traffic stops, and get the guns off the street, because they know the average beat officer is so disgusted with the leadership in this city and state that the proactive policing days are going a way of the past. But they still have these younger officers willing to do what the older officers are saying, it just ain't worth it. I'm not losing my pension. I'm not losing my job. I'm not losing my freedom.
Well, that was the other aspect that I wanted you to get to, which is the training and the difference between maybe guys and gals that were on the force and trained 10, 20, 30 years ago, and how they would approach and how they could be proactive versus the training today, where the argument is that you're supposed to be on your heels and reactive.
Well, I don't even know that it's training as much as the reality of the handcuffed procedures and oversight and laws designed to make law enforcement the villain. That's even more. The training hasn't changed that much on what you're supposed to do when you interact with a subject, whether it's a normal person on the street, a non-criminal, so to speak, or an actual felon. Those procedures really haven't changed much. It's just the dynamic of what's going to happen to you when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, body cams were not an issue 10 years ago, but now everything is hyper vigilant and revised and Monday morning quarterback to the nth degree, where you know, it's disgusting what this department has turned into on that level.
And,
But
yeah.
we've allowed it because we've elected these politicians into these offices and given them a platform to enact these changes. And they all need to know the FOP is coming for all of their seats in 22 and 23. Enough is enough. And I hope to God that this is a beacon call for everybody across this state, especially the idiots who championed 3563, because the simple fact is, you know, that wonderful mother of the year who decided to storm Christ Hospital with her nonsense video, she was I don't know, she didn't come to the bond hearings yesterday. I was at 26th and Cal for the bond hearings of both of her sons. She was not. And you know who else was not? Not one single exempt rank member of the Chicago Police Department showed up to those bond hearings. Not one of them. That is inexcusable on every single one of their levels.
Well,
That's interesting.
Yeah, and you said that you spent an hour with Ella French's mother, and we're hearing, you know, the 1-month-old that was shot on July 1st in that mass shooting in Inglewood, the gang shooting. Ella was there and helped save that baby's life, and was in the car with the boy's mother, and they just sang her praises yesterday about what a fine officer she was and how calming, and what other things did you learn about her by her, you know, the discussion you had with her mom?
Well, you know, some of that remains between me and, you know, Mrs. French, but I will tell you this. I was dreading that conversation and not knowing, and the sad reality is she didn't even know the details of how her daughter died. And that was my primary purpose for even sitting down with her, other than the fact that she's, you know, a fallen officer's mother. But I felt I needed to give her that information because she should have already had it. She was literally hearing tidbits everywhere about what had happened and this, that, and it just is not things that a officer's mother needs to try and process in her head. So going out there, I didn't know what to expect, but I got to tell you, she was an absolute champion. She is so composed. I know she's got her moments, and I know she's going to continue to have them, and it's going to get a roller coaster ride here. But specifically, that hour-and-a-half conversation I had with her, I will never forget for the rest of my life. It was wonderful. She shared some wonderful memories about Ella and who Ella was. And I will tell you that story about that 1-year-old child was one of her proudest stories that she shared with me that I did not even know until her mother told me it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So that was unique. But let me just tell you this. I left Ella's mother yesterday at 4:30 in the afternoon. The superintendent of the police department had still not been out to see Ella's mother personally himself. He was already back in town since Sunday, and this was Tuesday afternoon. 48 hours back from Dallas, and I know his mother passed away. I get it. But 48 hours, and you still did not go see the fallen officer's mother.
Maybe
inexcusable.
Maybe he went to Ella Fitzgerald's house.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. And thank God, you know, she had a good sense of humor about that. She didn't even know about it. Her friend called her and told her, and he said, what? And she kind of just shook her head and chuckled. But it's so messed up what is going on right now.
Well, John,
That's inexcusable, by the way, for Superintendent Brown not to visit her.
But before we let you go, though, you know,
I will say one last thing.
Oh.
He didn't visit the mother He didn't visit Ella's mother, but he did go straight to the hospital Sunday morning to go see Carlos, even though he was told not to come there either. They didn't want him there, but he still went there too, just like the mayor. So, I mean, the tone deafness here is just, I don't know, it's amazing.
They think they're above everybody else, that they know better.
After Commander Bauer was killed in the line of duty a few years back, it was supposed to change, didn't. What do you expect for the rest of the year, the rest of Lightfoot's term, in terms of public safety, police, violent crime?
I don't know how to answer that, Dan. All I could tell you is what I told Ella's mother yesterday, and I told her daughter will not just be a name on a wall if I have anything to do with it. She was the first officer, killed in the line of duty since I've taken office, and I take that beyond personal. I will never forget, all these names, but Ella specifically will be with me forever, and we are going to use Ella's memory to repeal House Bill 3563, because as I was getting to earlier, not only did that mother not go to the bond hearings, but the driver was not charged with felony murder, where his felonious actions resulted in part in the death of somebody else. 7 weeks ago, he would have been charged with upgraded to felony murder, just like his brother, and be looking at a life sentence. That is now not the case. They cannot do that because of idiots and our wonderful former representative, Mike Madigan, who called that lame duck session in January and made that bill a reality. Shame on him. I hope he rots in prison. But everybody who voted yes for that, every House member, every Senate member in Springfield, better know the FOP is going to come for all of their seats.
John Cantanzara, President of Chicago FOP. John, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan and Amy. Have a good day.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line. Now let's head into the newsroom. Elisa Z in for Mike Scott.
Good morning. It's 74 degrees in Chicago. I'm Elisa Z on AM 560, The Answer. A 14-year-old boy is accused of being the gunman in a deadly double shooting last month on Chicago's South Side. The teen is charged with murder and attempted murder in the July 24th death of 17-year-old Lugian Turner. A 16-year-old was also shot and taken to a local hospital in serious condition. Illinois is expanding access to family and medical leave for education support staff. Governor Pritzker signed a bill into law yesterday that will allow school district, public university, and community college district employees to be eligible for family and medical leave under the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo may be stepping down, but his legal troubles are far from over. 5 state prosecutors say they'll look into his behavior after one accuser filed a criminal complaint this week. Instagram is rolling out new anti-abuse and hate measures. The goal is to keep users from seeing racist, sexist, and homophobic posts. One new feature starting today will automatically hide comments and message requests from non-followers. This report is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts. Whether it's offering curbside or next-day delivery for online orders on over 160,000